how's it going, bro?
Good.
Yeah, what you playing there, man?
I'm actually using my HX Stomp. You know, the little Line 6 thing.
Yeah? It's a stomp pedal? What do you mean?
It's called the HX Stomp. It's the Helix.
Okay. That's the top of the line one, isn't it?
Well, the Helix is the top of the line one, yeah, and this is the bottom of the line, I guess. It's the same software, but in a smaller frames. It's less processing power, and it's the size of a
Oh wow!
It's like the 3-button
nice.
one.
Yeah.
So you're running that directly into your interface?
Yeah.
Very nice, man.
So
it sounds good.
So it's like 1.5 pounds, I guess.
And you're getting that clean tone with the harmonization on there with that?
Yes, I just downloaded the new the latest firmware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I tried the poly pitch.
What?
It's the poly pitch.
Okay.
So I can put a fifth on everything, so I can do like jazz chords.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
Yeah, it sounds nice. Very Holdsworthy.
Yeah, and he did a song with that.
Really? Is that a common patch? That other people use?
No, this is my own patch.
Okay, very nice, man. Like it. So is that your new SIG model?
Yeah, it's the new one.
Very nice, dude. Tell me about it. Looks great. I like the red.
For those of you who has never seen one of these, this is a Strandberg. It's a Swedish brand. It's relatively new, the brand. It's 10 years, I guess. And they have been growing like crazy. I mean, they started as, just a little small, a small builder who wanted to build ergonomical guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a few guys who picked up the guitar early. Chris Letchford, Tosin Abasi had one, and Misha Mansour had one, I guess.
Right.
And the company grew, and now it feels like everyone is playing Strandbergs.
Right.
Or other headless guitars from other brands. It's like
it looks great, man. I've seen a couple of them. I played one at NAMM. What kind of neck profile are you using on that guitar?
Well, the Strandbergs all have something called the Endor neck.
Right.
See if you can see it here.
Right. That's what I was curious about. I didn't know if they all came with that guitar profile, the neck profile like that.
Yeah, and most people when they try it for the first time, they are freaked out because it's a bit weird. It's
yeah.
Like it's like three surfaces that are.
Okay,
like
so there's yeah.
Yeah, there's one that like the middle surface is flat.
Right.
And then you got one there. It's like an angle. It's a slant, and same on the other side.
Okay.
So it's like.
So it actually kind of goes like this, and then it's flat in the center.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like that. That's pretty cool, man.
There's an asymmetry for this middle part.
Right.
So yeah, and when I started playing Strandberg guitars, I really liked the neck, but I wasn't, I still, wanted to go back and playing, like C-style necks.
Mm-hmm.
But then I felt like something was missing, so I went back and tried Endor neck, and we did like the first prototype we did was a Endor neck that was a little bit thinner.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next prototype we went with a C neck.
Okay.
And I was still like, nah. So now finally we have implemented all the changes I wanted. So
right.
This is like an Endor neck, but it's thinner, quite a bit thinner, and these edges between the surfaces are rounded off.
Okay.
So it's like an Endor neck that's sort of morphed into a C neck.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so it's been slightly modified to fit your specifications. So it's
yeah.
I get it, man. That's really cool, man. Now when you were going back and forth between the C and the Endor neck, what was it that you felt like was missing with the C? Or what do you feel like you're gaining from the Endor neck? How's it helping your playing? In what
One of
way?
the things, I mean, the Endure necks, they used to be pretty thick. I think they changed the recipe for all the guitars a little bit and made all of them a little bit thinner.
Right.
But mine is even more thin. But the thing I thought, because the thing with the asymmetry of this thing is meant to, you know, guide your thumb into keeping, you know, the most ergonomical position.
Okay.
But for me, the way I play, you know, I often do stretchy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go from, you know, doing one note, one finger per fret,
Right.
kind of fingerings, and you want to do something stretchy,
yeah,
you
right.
have to move your thumb.
Right. Of course.
And those like kind of sharp angles, my thumb got stuck on them.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't as, you know, evident on the higher frets.
Right.
So up here it felt really good, much better than a C neck. But when I got up here,
Yeah.
it something about the neck felt better on a C-shaped neck.
Okay.
And we actually tried this because Ola Strandberg, he had a little device that you could put around your arm to measure like the muscle tension.
Well, that's interesting.
So so he had a lot of guitar players try that and compared it with like a regular Strat.
Okay.
And then, you know, you play something here and it measures the tension, and then you play the same thing but up on the 12th fret.
Mm-hmm.
And he noticed that up here, like the tension was, you know, pretty similar between a Strandberg and a Strat.
Mm-hmm.
But up here, the Strandberg was much nicer, and
It was
less tension.
so it was a little bit more effortless. In other words.
Yeah. So on my guitar, we have moved the symmetry a little bit. So up here, it resembles what's going on here a little bit more.
I see. That's very cool. How did he? Do you know how he came up with the device? Can you tell me about that device that used to measure the tension or whatever?
I don't know where he got it. I guess he got it from, you know, some sort of physical therapist or something.
Sure. Right.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds pretty high tech, really. I mean, because I've never heard of any guitar maker doing anything like that. That's very interesting. I'd be interested in checking out the device just to measure the tension, you know, in general.
Yeah.
See what's going on with that. I mean, you know, it possibly could prevent, you know, if you learn enough about it, I imagine that it could possibly prevent hand injuries or repetitive strain injury or anything else that you might endure, you know, with the kind of playing that yourself or that I do as well. You know what I mean?
I had a student of mine who him and his whole band played Strandbergs, and I had never played one before, and he brought it in, and it had that neck that you're talking about where it's all ergonomical, and it really freaked me out right away. Like I just could not process it at all. Like, because I got small hands, you know, so like you're saying, where when you're trying to do big stretches and stuff, well, pretty much everything I do is a big stretch because my hands are so small. I couldn't get it with that neck. So I don't know. I'd like to try, you know, like yours where you've kind of modified it a little bit. I think that'd be better.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have more than one type of Endure neck?
No, I don't think so. It's mine and the others.
Okay, because I could have sworn that I played one at NAMM that didn't, you know, the way you're describing it, it's flat in the center and then it's got this angled sides.
Yeah.
I could have sworn I played one that kind of went up and then it just had one angle going down, but I don't know. Maybe it was a different.
I mean, they used to have a different neck, like in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That was
maybe
like.
I played an older model. I think it was.
I don't think they have exhibited the old ones.
Oh, okay.
Because when when the business grew and he, you know, it went into a more serious thing, he ditched that other neck thing because it wasn't his patent. It was, you know, someone else's that.
Right.
Because in the beginning when he was building, there was a lot of like a community of, you know, small builders, and they shared all the you know, designs with each other, like
Sure.
open source thing.
Right.
Like, you know, you can redesign my stuff, and but at some point he wanted to go with, you know, his own things.
That's very cool, man. So tell me about the frets.
Yep, this is another mind fucker, I guess, for a lot of people. The true temperament.
Yeah, so it is true temperament. That's
Yeah.
what I wanted. That's what I thought, but I didn't want to say it in case I was wrong.
Yeah, and people are like, "What happened to your frets? They are drunk."
Yeah, right.
My wife asked
Or
that
people-
question last night.
Yeah.
She's like, "What the hell's wrong with this guitar?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like,
he
"The
needs
frets
a
are
fret
squiggly.
job. Yeah.
Frets are squiggly."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah."
And people are like, "Isn't the guitar gonna be out of tune?" So
Well,
So-
I have my workout partner that I go every week with. He's got one of those. He had one made here, and when he tried to play it in the band that he's in, the other guy doesn't have one, and so they just could not keep in tune with each other. Like, you know, the chords were sounding weird, so he had to like just drop off from using that.
Is that an issue if you play with somebody in the band that doesn't have a true temperament? Does that a conflict?
I guess it could be. I guess it depends on what kind of things you play. You know,
Right.
if you're always, you know, if you're both playing the same parts,
In unison, right?
yeah, then
Would
I
it be
then
an
I
issue
guess
or
it,
not?
Then I guess it could be a problem.
It could be.
Like
So-
in
I'm sorry, go
Scar
ahead.
Symmetry, I play true temperament, but Benjamin, the other guitar player, he plays a standard frets. But in our music, we have a lot of like keyboards, backing
Right.
tracks, and obviously they are in, you know, equal
Right.
temperament.
Right.
So in Scar Symmetry, it means that, you know, I'm playing much more in the
tune.
same temperament as the keyboards,
Right.
and then he's like the one who differs a little bit.
Sure.
And I have never, you know, I haven't experienced it as
Gotcha.
sounding bad, but we wouldn't, you know, use two different guitars when recording.
Right. Yeah. And I mean,
right.
I wouldn't associate it with sounding bad. I was just curious because a true temperament, it's truly everything is perfectly in tune, correct?
Yeah,
It's intonated like to
Intonate,
the
yeah.
exact.
yeah, but it's also, you know, what is perfect intonation.
Right. Well, I would assume that something like a keyboard, like an electronic device, that would be truer, wouldn't it?
It would probably be equal temperament,
Okay.
you know, where on every semitone is 100 cents
Yeah.
apart from the next one,
I
and
see. I see.
Because
that's actually not exactly true for the true temperament guitars. There are some modifications to that where in some keys and some I can't remember the exact specifics of it, but I mean, the guy Anders who came up with this is like this weird genius person who figured all of this out.
was it Pythagoras?
No, he's talking about the guy that came up with the. You're talking
Oh,
about the
true
guy.
temperament. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, then
I mean,
he's probably dead.
it's like you know, Pythagoras. Yeah, I think is.
Yeah.
I was just doing- 'cause my dad-
pretty cold by now.
My dad tunes pianos, and he always
Yeah.
talks about the temperament when you're tuning pianos is that it's not the same as, you know, just getting a guitar tuner and making sure every single note is perfectly in pitch. You have to make sure everything is relatively in pitch to the note before it. And it was just like this really weird thing that I didn't understand at the time.
Yeah, and it's like if you play a major triad on a keyboard, that's not, you know, even if the piano is really tuned well, it's not super in tune, you know.
Correct. Yep.
It's like the third is a bit too high, I guess.
Yeah,
and
the third is always a little sharp.
yeah, and the fifth is a little bit flat.
Yeah.
So I guess
So-
the question is there such thing as perfect pitch on an instrument?
No, it's I guess it's like different temperaments or different flavors.
I got you. So that's
So-
interesting because I didn't know that about the piano.
Yeah,
I
that-
didn't
mean, it's
understand
like
it.
if
Went
you-
over my head.
I mean, if you play like a major triad, like that sounds reasonably in tune. But if you instead like bend up the third, that's quite a bit nicer.
Yeah.
Suddenly you don't have that like the beating of the frequencies.
Yeah, they're oscillating.
So the true temperament system on the guitar is designed to even things out a little bit. So for some, for the most common like guitar keys, it's like the thirds are just like, instead of being, I think if it's 14 or 16 cents off on a piano, on the guitar it's tuned so it's like 4 cents.
Yeah, that's crazy when you get down to like the small increments like that. Yeah, I've always noticed with most guitars that, for me personally, there's always a bigger discrepancy between the B and G string than any of the other strings. You know what I mean? Because it's the third and fourth. Either the third's in tune or the fourth's in tune, and never both at the same time, it seems like.
Right. And I usually, when I'm tuning that B string, I go up just a little bit sharper than I think it needs to be, like almost like 2 cents past it, because I have like a strobe tuner, and it usually ends up sounding a lot better when I'm doing those chords.
But then you stumble onto some chord that suddenly doesn't sound good.
Right, especially up higher.
Right.
Because then it starts the higher up. And that's what that true temperament's for, is it's more leveled in sound and intonation across.
Check out what's happening on the first fret between the second and third string.
Right, yeah.
It's got like a weird warble there.
Yeah, that's like
and then the second fret's pretty straight, right?
Yeah.
And then your third's got the thing right there on the, is that the B string or G string? I can't tell. That's got the little indentation.
The G string.
G, that's what
G
I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. So now who do you know Ola Melzig? What was his name? There's a guy here in Texas that works for True Temperament named Ola Melzig, I think is how you pronounce it. Are you familiar with him?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so I think he's the Texas rep for True Temperament, because a friend of mine, as a True Temperament artist, he's an classical acoustic player, and he does clinics and workshops and stuff like that for him. And he put me in touch with him, and he was supposed to, we were supposed to get together and do a guitar for me, that one of my guitars that had a neck on it like that, and we just never were able to sync up. And then all the COVID stuff happened and whatnot, and everything's just kind of been a mess since then. But I was just curious if you knew who that was. So what was the guy named that you mentioned that you said created it?
Anders Tidell.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't
I
heard
will not
that.
try to butcher that name.
Yeah, I'm going to try.
It would be embarrassing for everybody.
Right. That's awesome. So,
cool.
so what else is going on with your guitar? So what are you running for pickups in there?
Yeah, well, so actually, when I got the Meshuggah gig, the first guy I called was Ola Strandberg, because I didn't have I had an old Ibanez 8-string,
right?
But I didn't really like it a lot because it was a 28 scale, and not a multi-scale.
Right.
My new guitars are all multi-scales. But I called him up and like, you have to get me an 8-string guitar that would work. So he built me one, and he asked me, what kind of pickups do you want? And I was like, the pickups that the guys in Meshuggah uses,
Yeah.
I figured that would be the best bet.
Right.
And those are Landgrens, the Swedish pickup brand.
Yeah, I know those guys.
So, yeah, and really, really excellent pickups. So actually, speaking of,
here's my 7, or is that a 7?
This is a 7, and here's the 8 string.
Nice, man. Very nice.
Yep. So this
I like
one,
that.
it's a basswood body with a ash top.
Very nice.
And it's like the sand blasted thing.
Right.
Where
Beautiful.
like the pores open up and they are filled with blue.
Yeah, I love it, dude.
This
It's
one
great.
is
like
red.
that. Yeah.
And with the hardware, the matching color.
So is that their hardware?
Yeah. And it's apparently made from like a space age material.
Wow, that's crazy, man. Are
So
those
it's-
tremolos or those hardtails?
Hardtails.
Okay. So do any of your guitars come with a bar on them?
No.
No, all
No
hardtails.
bars.
Okay.
So it's true
Yeah.
temperament and multi-scale.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So the 7-string one is 25 and a half to 26 and a half, I think, or if it's 26 and 3/4. I keep forgetting.
Right.
And this one is 26 and a half to 28.
To 28. Okay, that's not bad.
So I mean, to have 26 and a half on the treble strings instead of 28 that I had on the Ibanez, that makes a world of difference.
26.5 on the high E string side of the 8 string.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad.
So it's still a little bit big,
Right.
for me. But if the like the slant, the multiscale, if it was to be like 28 to 25 and a half,
Yeah.
Then suddenly things get a little bit too crazy.
Yeah. I had a 9 string back in like 2005 when I was using Conklin, and it was 24. No, I think it was 23.5 to 26.5, because I didn't want to go. With the high A string, you got to put those frets closer together, because if you don't, man, you do anything other than breathe on that high A string, it's going to break.
Yeah.
So we had to, it was 23.5 on the high A, and I didn't want to go too much further than 26.5, which it ended up not being long enough, but the fan would have been too crazy going from 23 to 20, anything beyond that, you know what I mean? And that was really early in the game. I don't think anybody else was playing a 9 string then. And, there was nobody making pickups for them, and the pickups that came in it, I just didn't really care for it. And so I ended up just selling it and not really doing anything with it. I don't think everything was, the technology wasn't quite there for it to make it the most playable thing in the world. But it, I can see that. So like this guitar, this is my Ormsby, and it's a 7, but we've got to put a multi-scale on it. It's 25.5 on this side, and we do 26.2 on this side. So it's not much different. It's just a little bit, and just that little bit of difference, I can definitely feel it on the stretches on the low side. You know what I mean? So I can imagine if the high side was 26.2 as well, or 26.5. Because I already, on a 25.5 scale guitar all the way across, I'm already stretching as far as I can. And it makes that much difference if I'm down here trying to stretch from 1 to 7, and then it's that much longer. You know what I mean? If you're already at your max, then it's like it's handicapping yourself in a way. You know what I mean? So I'm very cautious with what I do with the scale lengths, because I like to play that way, and I don't want something that's gonna now I can't play this lick or whatever because it's this much longer. So I'm very cautious with all that stuff. Now I realize, like on a low F sharp model, that there's, you have to go that route. Otherwise it just doesn't function. It's too floppy on the low end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I mean, when you have a longer scale on the bass strings, you can get away with having much thinner strings.
Right.
And if you play high gain, that really sounds a lot better to my ears, at least.
To play with a thinner gauge string on the low end.
Yeah.
What do you use?
I mean, people are talking about like you have to have really thick strings, to have power and sustain. But to me,
I don't think so.
Not if you play high gain.
Right. So what do you use?
Because I know Yngwie uses like 008s, and he's down half a step too.
But
he's on a Fender, so.
But he doesn't use 8s all the way across. It's like on the first 3 strings, I think.
Right. Yeah, and then it goes down to a 46.
Yeah. Right.
That's my setup usually.
My setup normally is 9 to 42, and then I use a 60 for the low B or a 62. Just kind of bring some tension back into it, but I'm kind of rethinking that as of lately.
So with your guitar, you're doing like stuff with Meshuggah, right? And like what gauge strings do you use, and what tuning are you in with those strings on those guitars? You know what I'm saying? You have multiple guitars you use?
No. I mean, I can start with my 7 string. I use 9 to 42, and then a 56.
A what?
For the 56.
Oh, okay, 56.
So,
okay.
so pretty light.
Yeah.
And we do drop A.
Okay.
On some songs, but I still use the 56.
So drop A on your 7.
Yeah.
The 56, and you feel like you've got enough tension still?
Yeah.
That's nice, man.
I mean, I guess I could, go a little bit heavier, but I've just used it for so long and it works.
Right. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly. And I also play with a power metal band called Nocturnal Rites. And we play 7-string, but we tune down a half step, but I still use the same strings. Because I get them from Dunlop and they send me, 200 packs of strings, and I'm not going to ask them for another, gauge set. So
yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
And for Meshuggah, I use the same strings, but I add a 70.
Okay, used for the low F sharp.
Yeah, and we tune down half a step.
So it's an F, right?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool, man.
But then I can use the same gauges because we tune down a half step, and the scale length is longer.
Right.
I was going to ask about that.
So
does it really affect it that much when you have the scale different?
No, that really works.
Nice.
Yeah. And what's the low F sharp, or what's the scale on the low side again?
28.
28.
Oof.
Yeah, it's pretty long, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're beautiful guitars, man. I love that.
Yeah, but they had their old, I guess, signature model. I think they had like a Meshuggah model. I'm not sure, or if it was Morten or Fred's. But one of them had a scale length that was like 29.4 or something.
Right, that's ridiculous.
And that was not multi-scale.
Yeah, that's straight across. That's how they were in the beginning. I remember I was with Ibanez when they made their first 8-string, and they made a prototype, and they sent it to me to check out. And it was interesting because they had a floating tremolo on it, but what they did to make the bridge was they took 2 low pro edges and cut them in half to make the 8-string trim, and they put them together for me to try out. And it was like, it was a beast, that long scale. It was a little bit too much, it was like, I think it was a 29 or 30 or something like that. It was a little bit much, but it was very interesting to see that. I ended up having one made from the LA Custom Shop with a cool cutaway in the back, but they wouldn't do any kind of mods to the front of the guitar. That was the big thing with them. So, because I'm always about getting the guitar out of the way. You know what I mean? I've always fought with the guitar and the cutaway and the thickness of the neck and everything. And I had all these cool ideas for guitar builds and designs, and they were like, well, we can't do anything that's going to change the way the guitar looks from the front. So they tried doing a little scoop thing on the back, and it kind of.
So on that guitar pair, you probably, because it looks like that horn is a little smaller, so you probably, does it get in your way at all, or you're pretty good with stretches up there?
Well, the horn, this.
There's not much of horn there.
No.
Yeah.
It's like an amputee.
That's pretty awesome, man. And it's 24 frets? Is it 24?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, man.
And I mean, if you look at this body shape, it looks a little bit like an Ibanez one, right? It's just that there's
almost like a red beach Ibanez.
Yeah,
it's like chunks of wood that's missing.
Yeah. So what is the neck joint like on the back? Okay, so so the tip of that, right, where the dead center, what fret is that
at? 16.
It's at the 16th fret. So it's way up there. Is that and then it's slanted back on each side, so it kind of tapers like a V, kind of, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Very interesting. So you have good access. You feel like you can get up there and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to playing guitars that don't have incredible access. So I've never really thought about it. It was never an issue.
Right.
So you don't fix it.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome.
I've always had I have really stubby hands. They're like baby carrots. Like my fingers are really small and my hands kind of fat. So I could never get up to that 24th fret. I played Schecter's for a long time, and the neck joints are really far up, and I couldn't even reach the 24th fret. So on this Ormsby that I have, it's not a custom or whatever, but it's got a really good cutaway. Like I get my pinky all the way up here with room, so I like that. I could probably get up to here too. So
yeah,
I mean,
play on that pickup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
But it's really cool. I'm not cool. I don't have like a signature model just yet. I will though.
Yeah,
it's on my whiteboard, so it'll happen eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah, of course.
Dude, so tell us about the Meshuggah gig, man. How did you end up getting that? How did you get the call?
I'm not exactly sure, but I think they were sort of looking for, the right person. And they were like, we don't have an idea. And then their monitor tech, he did monitor for one show with Scar Symmetry, like a year before, and he, he was standing on my side of the stage, and he's also a guitar player, so he was like watching me the entire night, like,
oh yeah,
what's that guy doing?
Yeah,
and
Amazing
I guess he was impressed or something.
Yeah.
So then he mentioned me, like, what about this guy? And so I guess that's how it started.
Yeah. So it's got to be awesome, man, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So were you a big Meshuggah fan before?
Pretty big fan. Yeah. For sure. I mean, I was a huge fan, like back in the day. I saw them. They did a show in my town back in early '94, I think it was. Some friends of mine were the opener, so we went to see them, and then we heard that Meshuggah was a cool band, but I had never heard them.
Right.
And my friend's band wasn't, they weren't very good, but we were there to support them anyway. Right. But then when Meshuggah went up on stage, and that was just crushing, because they were exactly as good back then as they are now.
Right.
The musicianship and everything was there.
Yeah. What year was that again?
94.
Wow, that was in the beginning, pretty much for them too, wasn't it? When was their first album?
They started in 87.
Okay, that's it. That's right.
Yeah, but I mean they were kids, I guess.
Yeah.
But 94, I was 20. So I was one of the young, metal musicians in my town, right. and everyone who played, in a band, were there to see Meshuggah, and everyone left, being like, disillusioned, and I don't know what to do with my life.
Yeah.
They probably still do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a comedian. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. His name's Bill Burr. And apparently,
I heard that.
Yeah, apparently he picked up the drums, and his drum teacher took him to a Meshuggah show. And you can see it's on YouTube. You can look it up, but it's him talking about his reaction to seeing them for the first time and whatnot. It was pretty funny. It's interesting to see, especially when you're not a musician and you listen to certain bands, especially like Meshuggah, you don't really understand what's going on. But when you have a little bit of knowledge, I think the impact of how amazing and what they're really doing, the vastness of it has a greater impact. At least it does for me. When I was a kid, before I played guitar, I didn't listen to anything that I listened to now. I didn't know any better. I was listening to stuff on the radio. Shit, not that there's anything wrong with radio music, but as soon as I started playing guitar and started digging in a little bit deeper, I realized that, there was not a lot on the radio for me from a guitar playing standpoint. You know what I mean? So that's pretty impactful, I think. So are you still playing with those guys?
I mean, we were supposed to be out this past summer, and that obviously got canceled, and then it was rescheduled for next summer, but that got canceled as well. Yeah, which was too bad. It was meant to be, like, last summer was going to be a festival tour with festival dates in the weekends, and then like the weeknights in between were like club shows and travel days. Cool. But it was like 4 weeks that were put together, to have the festivals and some other shows, and to be able to, carry the expense of having a big production, all the lights and everything.
Right.
And then when when all of the festivals, when everything, got canceled and postponed. I mean, most festivals, they just moved to next summer, the same weekend,
Right.
but just next summer. But then it's a couple of the festivals, they moved to other weekends. So instead of, the festival moved from July to August or so.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing, fell apart.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, to have that expensive, that kind of expensive tour thing going on with all the equipment and all the crew, and have like big chunks of time where you don't have any shows. Mm-hmm. So it just fell apart, and they decided to have the summer off and work on the new album.
Right. That's cool. So they're in the studio.
So right now they're working on a new album, and then there's gonna be some touring, and it hasn't really been announced whether I'm gonna continue or if Fredrik is gonna make his grand return.
Why did Fredrik take some time out? That's something you talk about, or?
No, some people are like, does he have problems? Is it family issues or, whatever? Mm-hmm. Does he have AIDS? No.
My God.
Yeah, that's a little extreme.
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Does he have family issues or does he have AIDS? Like, I feel like there should be something in between those two.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah, I just wanted to, cover as much as I could.
Sure.
Cover the full spectrum.
Yeah. No, so as far as I know, he's been wanting to build his own studio for a long time, and he's been wanting to work on his solo stuff. I mean, he made a fantastic solo album back in '98 or so. I think it was released.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I love that album, by the way. It's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
So I guess he wanted a time off to do that, and I guess he's the kind of guy who really, he needs to focus on, one thing at a time.
Right.
So if he's got tours lined up, then it's gonna be, then it's not gonna, he knows it's not gonna work on his studio or his solo stuff. It's not gonna have be in the right frame of mind to do that.
Sure.
Right.
So he's been wanting to take the time off, I guess, for several years, and finally it was like, guys, I know we're in the middle of a touring cycle, but I need some time off.
Yeah.
So I got a question from my brother because he didn't want to chime in, so he's texting me. He said, does Meshuggah have a lighting guy that tours with them? Because that guy must be doing the Lord's work.
He truly is. And he tours with the band.
Oh, cool. So let me ask you this then. One thing, because Scar Symmetry, that's like your baby, right? Like you've been there, like you started it. And then so you do that, you build that on your own, and then you go out with a band like Meshuggah. Like, what is the difference between doing the Scar Symmetry thing versus the Meshuggah thing for you personally?
Well, with Scar Symmetry, I'm gonna have me a little one, so
awesome.
I hope you don't mind.
I've got some Diet Coke, so I'll join you.
Right.
I got some Rumpelmints.
It's what's that?
Rumpelmints. It's 100 proof schnapps.
Oh, is it mint?
Yeah, kind of.
Nice.
Yeah, so you can get it. You can. I mean, if you were so inclined, you can get drunk and have good breath.
That's really nice.
I hope that's their slogan.
And
it's 100 proof. So.
And it's like a courtesy to your fellow alcoholists.
Right.
Nice. Well, I mean, Scar Symmetry. We started out. I mean, we're a band in many senses of the word, but when we started out, there was three of us. Well, actually, four of us who were writing. Three of us wrote the music, and the drummer wrote the lyrics. And then, as things have moved along, like one guy got fired and another guy quit, and then suddenly I was left as the only guy holding the steering wheel, and I've taken upon myself to sort of manage the band in the later years, and I've Now I write all of the music and I handle pretty much all of the business. And when we tour, I'm usually, to some extent the tour manager, and I book all the flights and I hire the crew, and so I do all of that. So it's
wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah, and I have to, because we're not that big a band. Even if we have a pretty good following, it's not like we don't attract thousands of people to our shows. So in order to make it work and can keep a reasonable budget,
Sure.
we have to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Ourselves.
How did you?
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think that's cool. Also, it's cool to be hands on.
Right. How did you manage to take on all those roles, and how do you manage that, really? I mean, that's a lot to do, and still stay focused on playing and keeping your chops up and getting plenty of rest and things like that. Is it a struggle?
There's been a couple of tours. I mean, it's mostly a pain in the ass when you're actually on tour, or right before a tour, when everything is gonna come together, and you plan the rehearsals and you program the backing tracks and you program the patch changes on.
So
on
you're doing all that too?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy, man.
And then. That's really stressful. And then I'm always when I leave my wife for a tour, and now that when I have a kid, it's even more so.
Sure.
I really, I really don't. I love touring and I love playing, but I really miss, home.
Yeah.
So it's always, I always also have that in the back of my head that I'm gonna leave. And I have all this work, and the last few days I'm working all the time to make everything work. And my wife like, "Do you have some time for me?"
Yeah, dude. I know that. I know the feeling, man.
Yeah.
So
at least she's understanding. I mean, she loves what you do and supports you. So.
Oh yeah. She's great.
Yeah. That's important.
And she helps me out, with everything else, in life when I'm working and when I'm stressed out.
Yeah.
But anyway. A few years ago, back in 2016, I was actually a little bit burnt out by this, and because we've done a couple of tours where I felt like I worked too much, and it wasn't that much fun for me, and I want to make sure the guys have a good time and they can kick back and drink after the show, and all the while I'm hitting the bunk and I'm stressed out, and I
right.
So they say the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, like you got all this stuff to do and you're kind of still feeling like it's too much.
Yeah. So in 2016, I started thinking about, I should have another gig as well. It would be cool to join a band and not do anything of this, and join an established band and just play. And the funny thing, I actually, right after I started thinking about that, I got a call from a Swedish band called Dark Tranquility. They wondered if I could do a tour with them, but it was a long tour, and for different reasons I didn't want to do it, so I passed on it. But then just a while later, Nocturnal Rites. I don't know if you've heard about them.
I have.
Yeah, it's like a classic Swedish power metal band. They have been around for a long time. Yep. I guess they never made it very big in the States, but like in Europe,
we've certainly heard of them over here.
In Asia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they
with YouTube, it's easy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But anyways, they asked me if I wanted to join and do an album, and I felt like this is exactly what I've been sort of asking for. So I said yes, and you started planning stuff, and that was really, really cool. And I'm a fan of the band. And it's nice because it's a little bit change of musical styles, because it's more like melodic, like power metal. There's no growls, and all the solo stuff is like much more melodic. So we started working on that, and then yet another few weeks passed, and then I got a text from Thomas from Meshuggah, like, "Hey man, can you do a tour with us?" And then I was like, "Whoa, like it's getting interesting."
Yeah,
What's happening now?
So then suddenly I had a lot on my plate.
Yeah, man, that's a lot, dude. So
then suddenly I had two bands that I got to tour with where I didn't have to plan anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I do some stuff in Nocturnal Rites. I've been adding, you know, that we use the line 6 stuff and we program them, and but I don't have to worry about money or anything.
Right.
And with Meshuggah, I don't even, you know, have to bring my guitar when we tour. You know, everything is, you know, taken care of and shipped in advance. So I only, you know,
cool,
have to bring a backpack with clean underwear.
Right.
So and if I didn't, probably
Maybe they get
someone
you
would.
some.
Yeah, they would, and they would
Yeah,
change my underwear if I needed to.
Your mother taught you well.
Yeah. So
That's really cool, man. Like just the experience of that though too, because you know, if you're burning yourself out all the time, you know, being the manager and being the tour promoter for yourself, and probably do social media stuff too, I assume, posting and all of that. And it's like, dude, like after a while, you just like you just want to like lay down and just cry for a minute.
Yeah, dude, I did that, man. Yeah, I reached extreme burnout and just kind of just I had to just take a step back and just, you know, breathe, man. Mm-hmm. And then when you come back, it's like things change so much that I had to, you know, Zach's teaching me about how friggin' social media works now. You know what I mean? It's like, right. Hash browns, hashtags. What's that all about? You know, this, that, you know.
Right. Well, yeah, because it's just like computers and stuff. 1 year can make or break the difference between like this software is completely different than it was. And then you have to relearn a whole new program, and, you know, or social media is the same way. Like, you know, the essence of it is the same, but you know, like they changed the platform or they changed the layout, and then, you know, you just feel like you're always behind. And when you feel that way, it can really weigh on you, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, the era that I grew up in, it's tough. It can be tough if you fight it, you know. I've kind of given into it, but you know,
helps when you have,
when I was, that's good. Zach, how do I do this? But you know, I'm used, you know, I grew up playing music when we went to a studio and somebody recorded you, and you know, somebody took care of management and
what's that like,
and all that stuff, you know. And it's like being a musician nowadays is so demanding because you've got to be everything, you know what I mean? Especially if you're an upcoming independent artist, or you know, you're not in a big band that's already made it or whatever. You know, you have to do everything. That's to me is overwhelming because I don't have that kind of time. You know what I mean? I don't have time to do all of that stuff and still you know, sleep. You know what I mean? Because I mean, if, as far as promotion goes, I feel like there's something you could be doing, you know, at every minute of the day. There's always something to be done. And whether it's practicing, promoting, all the social media pages that you've got to be on and to keep current and keep up to speed. And, you know, then you got to learn how to edit videos. You got to learn how to record yourself. You got to learn how to be a drummer and produce and program and all that stuff. It's a lot, man. I'm used to just spending all my time trying to be the best guitar player that I can be. And that's hard enough as it is, let alone thinking about all those other things that I got to do now. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. How do you balance that?
I don't know.
You just do it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, people have been waiting for the new Scar Symmetry album for, I don't know how many years, 6 years. So
it's been a minute.
Yeah. So I guess there's right. The answer.
Yeah. So now the band you said, the band you're with currently, you said Nocturnal Rites?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were doing that. My bad. See, I'm so out of touch with the internet and everything that's going on. But are you on some of their albums now?
Yeah, there's one album out with me.
What's the name of that album?
Phoenix.
Cool, because I'm going to go get that after we're done here tonight. I got to check it out.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it. I can't wait to check it out, man. It's pretty awesome.
It's a pretty good album.
Yeah, and how do you feel like, I know you said already that there's like a lot of room for melody in that album. How do you play? How is your playing in that band versus Scar Symmetry?
I don't know. Maybe it's not all that different.
Right. What about from a writing standpoint?
I mean, I don't write anything.
Okay, so you just do strictly solos, lead guitar.
Yeah, that's when they asked me to join, the album was already written, and I had already started recording it. But it's like in Scar Symmetry, our style is so mixed. It's like it's all kinds of I mean, it's metal, but it's death
progressive.
metal, and it's like power metal, and it's and
That's why I like it
like
though, man. Like that's
Yeah.
why you're like in my top 5, because every time I
Oh,
listen
cool.
to a different album, man, it's like, some bands, Rusty and I talked about this. There's some bands where they hit their stride early and they stick with it forever, and it's kind of the same albums, and people like that, But for me, it's like every time you guys put out a new album, I'm like, well, who the hell is this band? Like, oh my God, it's Scar Symmetry. You know what I mean? Because it's so much different. And you're always trying to push yourself to play different, and like, I don't know, just the styles there. Like, you could be singing and like getting an emotional moment on one song, and then the next song you're getting punched in the face, and that's what I like.
Yeah, and that's sort of the whole idea about the band, to just take whatever we want and cram it in a big blender.
Right. So
And see
let
what
me
comes
ask you
out.
this: Have you found, because of the diversity in Scar Symmetry, have you found that's been a little bit of an issue finding a secure label and things like that, because you're not easily classified as one thing?
Well, I mean, we've been on the same label since the second album.
Okay.
So that hasn't been a problem. Maybe we would be more successful if we, streamline things or whatever,
Then you wouldn't be true to who you are, though.
But then we would, then we wouldn't be what we are. And then, I mean, if we change things, maybe we would be even less popular.
Right. Yeah. See,
who knows?
I didn't discover you guys until, I was in a band called Outworld, and we did a full-length album and an EP, and the EP was a little bit different than the album. It was a little bit heavier with more, it was a good mixture of progressive metal style vocals and some guttural style singing. And after the band broke up is when I met this guy. I don't know if you know this dude or not, but I think you had talked to him years ago. I don't know. Does the name Andretti sound familiar? Andretti Medina?
Yeah.
Yeah. Andretti was a student of mine, and he was the one that turned me on to Scar Symmetry. And after Outworld broke up is when I heard you guys for the first time. And it was like, that you guys reminded me a lot of what Outworld was doing at the time. And I personally experienced that, because when I write, I don't write based on any genre or, this doesn't fit our style. Whatever I write, that's what comes out. That's what we use. You know what I mean? I don't go, well, this is too pop, or this is too heavy, or this is too whatever. It's just, that's what it is. I let the notes fall where they fall. And because of that, it's not easily, you're not easily put into a classification. You know what I mean? It's not metal. It's not metalcore. It's not this. It's its own thing. And because of that, I feel like it's hindered our ability, at the time, it hindered our ability to really, people didn't know what to do with us, I guess is what I'm trying to say. As far as
how do they put you on a bill?
Labels
Like,
and management really didn't know where to classify us. And I think that's been something that's followed me throughout everything that I do. It's
You're
like, going, yeah, well, going from Outworld to Day of Reckoning, and it's like, when I was in Outworld, I was going heavier because there wasn't any bands that were really doing a lot for me, and that I was getting into the heavier stuff because that's what inspired me. I love the aggressive rhythms and the powerful drumming and stuff like that, and that's what I started to gravitate towards. But still, with that same lead guitar style that I'd been playing, just within that kind of sound. It's like, I don't think people ever know really where to put me personally as a guitar player. I think I obviously get lumped into the shredder thing, but it's definitely not. That's not. I did one instrumental album, so I don't, really see that as being a career classification. So I don't know. I was just curious if you had experienced that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we put out our first album, we did that on a really small label, and I guess that was around the time that, like, the sort of melodic death metal, with death metal with harmonies and some clean vocals, that was really big at the time. With like bands like In Flames I guess
Right.
they were like maybe the biggest band back then, and like more mid-sized bands like Soilwork.
Yeah, I love those guys.
Yeah, and they were really popular, and then we came with our album, and our style was, you know, sort of adjacent to theirs. Maybe we had a little more proggy stuff.
Yeah, more progressive.
But maybe
more
not.
thready.
Maybe not on the first album.
Yeah.
We started to spread out more as we went along. But so I guess that helped. If we would have, you know, turned up 5 years earlier or 5 years later, you know, I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's also a factor.
Sure. Timing is everything, really. You know.
But it's for me, it's like the dream style of music to play, because it's so easy to write. As you say, like whatever you come up with,
Right.
pretty much can be used in a song. It could be like a pop influences or whatever, and it can be like super dense jazz chords, or
Right.
you know, I put whatever I want into music.
Yeah. I don't ever consider anything to be off limits. It's like, you know, I just, whatever comes out, and that's what I'm going to use. You know what I mean? If I like it, of course, you know.
And then since we have two different vocal styles, it's like if I have a riff that really inspires me to write a great melody, then it's going to be melodic vocals. And if I have a riff or something that's like there's nothing there, then I could just have the growling, and you know, so
that's
it's
pretty
like the
cool,
songs write themselves. But so for Nocturnal Rites, everything is, you know, pretty much melodic. There is, you know, some bad boy riffs, but you know, it's not a whole lot of it.
It's a funny classic. Some bad boy riffs. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, where when you're forced to play Phrygian dominant.
Right. Yeah.
But there's nothing crazy. There's nothing like jazz influenced in the harmonies, so, which means I don't, you know, typically go for that kind of playing, you know, because there's no need to throw in all these weird notes.
Right.
When the entire song is like really like diatonic.
Right. Correct. Yeah, absolutely. I know totally what you mean, man. It's great. So speaking of weird notes, how did you get into Allan Holdsworth?
Well, when I was a kid, you know, I started getting lessons. I started playing when I was 10, and I started getting lessons right away. And the music school in my town, they had like a jazz profile. They had like their own big band and lots of really, really great teachers. So all the teachers, like they wanted me to play jazz stuff, and I was like, sure, you know, I played Charlie Parker. I mean, I didn't really care for the music. I still really, you know, I really don't listen to a lot of like old jazz music. But still, you know, I got introduced to a lot of stuff, and then as I got a little bit older, like in my mid to late teens, I started getting interested in some fusion players, like Frank Gambale, for example. Yeah. And actually, a friend of mine, he gave me a cassette where I recorded Frank Gambale songs and some other artists, and then there were a few songs on it, and I thought it was Frank Gambale, but it sounded a bit different, and I was like, I really like this, and I played it to my guitar teacher at the time, and he was like, no, that's not Frank. I'm pretty sure that's Allan Holdsworth.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. And then I got out and got some albums. And so ever since my like late teens, it's been my favorite guitar player.
Yeah. What was the first album you got by Holdsworth?
The first one I recall like really listening to it is Secrets.
Okay. That was that's the one with the red cover, right? Is that before Road Games? It is, isn't it?
No, it's after.
After. And then it's Metal Fatigue. After Secrets is. Oh wait a minute, you said Secrets? No, that's later, right?
Yeah, that's like 1990 or so.
Yeah. So the first thing I heard by Holdsworth was Guitar Player magazine used to have this thing where the magazine came with a little floppy record that you put on your turntable.
Yeah. Devil Take Hindmost.
It was called a sound page, right? And this is and interestingly enough, this was back when Steve Vai was transcribing for Guitar Player magazine. So Steve Vai did a transcription of Devil Take the Hindmost. And that was the first thing that I heard by Holdsworth. And I was just blown away. So
that was one of the songs that was on that cassette.
All right. Yeah, that's a great song. That whole album was awesome. And then I got some stuff. I still to this day I have Road Games on vinyl. And I think you have Metal Fatigue on vinyl as well. There you go, man. Yeah. Perfect. That's awesome. So how did you start studying and learning a bunch of his stuff?
No, actually I didn't. I never learned much of his music. It's just like his approach and his tone and
right.
But I never actually bothered to figure out too many of his licks.
Right. Just the inspiration.
Maybe it just seemed unreachable to me.
Right.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because I've kind of most of the time when I listen to guitar players, I can, I know what they're doing. You know what I mean? But it's like with Holdsworth, sometimes I just have to listen just for pure musical enjoyment and not think about music from a analytical standpoint as a guitar player. Just absorb it and take it in.
Well, I mean, because like Holdsworth isn't like, say like Ace Frehley, where it's the same licks over and over again, pentatonic bends and double stops. Like, you know what I mean? I can listen to those kind of riffs and solos and pretty much like you said, I mean, I can just learn them right on the spot in my head, for the most part. But then you listen to Holdsworth and it's like, I swear it's like he knows notes that don't exist somehow. And then you have to like sit and like slow it down and really figure out everything that he's doing. And it's really difficult. And the way he approaches scales is so strange to me.
Yeah. He definitely doesn't play scales like most guitar players do.
Right.
But some of the stuff, like the few licks that I actually learned from him, some of the stuff that's really hard is laid out so brilliantly. Like the first song on the Secret album, City Night, is like it's like a monster lick. Something like that.
Right.
And it's like all Dorian. So first he plays a minor shape and jumps to the B string. So it's the same shape, but he skips 2 strings. And then he slides up, and then he plays
what's the first shape?
It's just a minor triad.
Okay. And then you do it on the B string.
And the same, like on the same frets.
Right.
So it's really symmetrical, but he makes a little slide on the top.
Right. So puts a flat 6 on top.
A flat 7.
Oh, so you're sliding. I thought you were sliding a half step.
Well, it's a flat 6 from the B minor triad.
Right.
But but against A, it's
right. I got you.
That's how I look at it. And it's all A Dorian. And then it slides up and plays a major triad in the first inversion. And then he plays that on 3 strings. And then skips 2 strings.
Yeah, that's nice, man.
Oh,
so it's 2 patterns, but it slides up, so it's really symmetrical.
Right.
And when you listen to it, it sounds like absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to play.
Right.
But still, it's so smart.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. So do you use a lot of what, you were talking about earlier, you do a lot of intervallic stuff. How do you approach that stuff, and what are you thinking about? I mean,
I wish I knew.
Okay. So, but I mean, you obviously knew the analysis of that lick. So
yeah.
Do you think about that? Do you have a certain methodology you use, or a certain approach to developing licks like that?
I mean, I don't think I don't really play those kinds of licks. I mean, I do some stretchy stuff. It's really hard to analyze yourself on the spot like this.
You can think. I personally will think about some things as single string triads, That's why when you said it went to B, and you did the half step, I just thought of it as a minor 6 from B, not as related to A, right? So, so for me, I might take, like, if you're just in a diatonic key, if you're, let's say, E minor, for example, if you're playing across the each string at the 12th fret, then you got E minor, A minor, D major, G major, B minor, and E minor again. So I would think about each string as its own triad, but of course you certainly analyze it as what each one of those notes are in relationship to the root. You know what I mean?
And that's how I usually think of things.
Sure.
I always relate it to the root of wherever
now
I'm at.
In some situations, the chord changes are coming by so quick. If it's still diatonic, the changes are coming by so quick that it's, I'm not necessarily thinking about how each note is affecting that particular chord in that instance. So I'll still go back to like thinking about, it's each one's its individual. Just individual triads, or I'll take that and I'll add another finger to it and do like, if it's minor, and major. So for minor, I'll add the 4. And for major, I'll add 2. So you can get, different, interesting sounds that way. Certainly when you go into sweeping, there's a lot of different extensions you can get off that too, because if you do something like, something like that, each one of those would be, as it relates to a dominant 7th chord, you got the flat 7, 1, 3, 5, you got the 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, etc., things like that. So I think for me personally, it just depends on what I'm playing over as to how I think about it. If I'm going to analyze it as compared to one chord, or, as the chord's passing by, there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. How do you generally think about it always as per chord?
Yeah, I do that quite a bit. Yeah. I mean, obviously also like if the chords move, but it's diatonic, so you can still, be in one position.
Right.
It's like I'm also aware of, the relationship from the key, the root of the key,
Sure, absolutely.
But I guess that's one thing coming from a bit of jazz schooling, where you really have to be on top of the chords, because the chord changes. So right. it's like it's not just diatonic in one key.
Yeah, absolutely. In that situation, you have to think about it per chord.
So one of my favorite solos from you, like I said earlier, was the Neuromancers. And it seems like in that solo, you change keys, or at least you change kind of the whole feel of that at least 3 times, maybe 4. Like, do you just break down the solo into each individual part and then piece it together? Or how did you approach that, let's say?
Well, generally when I record a solo, I just start recording and I jam on it, and maybe I record a bit, and maybe I have like a few bars that are improvised, and then something happens, and then maybe I want to write, something that leads to the next part or whatever. It's rarely, improvised in one take.
Well, right, yeah. Because I have to explain that to my students, because they think that, when they're writing a solo, you have to write all 30 seconds or 45 seconds on the spot. And if it's not good, you suck. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Like, you improvise, you get some ideas, and then you go, hey, I like this part, but I didn't like this. So how do I lead into this good part? You know what I mean? It's a process and it's an art. And that's, I think that's something that I think people overlook a lot.
I've had some pretty lucky moments in the past, where you get some good takes. I've had situations where you go in the studio and you have something planned out, this whole grand thing, you got the solo all worked out, and you get in the studio and it doesn't work. And it's like, okay, well, let me just try something else. And then it ends up just happening on the spot, and, and you get lucky.
But even still with that, you're still at least playing over the song multiple times and getting ideas out there rather
Sure.
than you do it. It's the first time you've heard the track, the first time you heard the solo section, and you just came up with the world's greatest solo. I feel like putting that pressure on yourself isn't.
Well, the world's greatest solo. I don't know about any of that shit, but but
that's what I'm saying. When you
Things
have
that I can
students that
live
think
with.
that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you have students that think that, because they hit a wrong note, that's something bad. I think that, you gotta be a little more forgiving.
where I wasn't allowed to hear the track before I got there, and I had to go in and just do it on the fly. This one band that I did some guest solos on their album, they weren't even supposed to be in the studio. It was all hush hush. They flew me down to Florida to record it, and the only chance I got to hear the track in advance was the day I got there. They let me come in the studio and listen to it, and then I went back to my hotel room, and I had to, based on what I heard in that moment, I had to try to formulate some ideas that night to go back in the studio and record the next day. It was interesting. I snuck a recording on my cell phone while I was standing there, so I had something to listen to when I was back at the room. But that was definitely interesting. But it ended up coming out well. It wasn't super challenging stuff, and it's really interesting. Some of the things that sound like they would be easy, and then you go try to play over them, and it's not, and vice versa. Have you ever experienced a situation where somebody's saying something to play over, and it's like sounds like this? Well, this is going to be pretty easy, and then you try to play over it, and it's like it just doesn't work out to be that easy. And when in those situations, if you have encountered that, how do you approach getting through it?
I mean, I do quite a bit of guest solos, and a lot of times it's just a bad boy riff, something that would imply it being, dominant Phrygian or something.
Right.
When it's like something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I'm going to use that term. I'm stealing that bad boy riff.
Yeah. And when that happens, that's for me, that's pretty makes me feel really unexcited.
Oh yeah.
And,
but it shouldn't.
Most
It's
of the
not.
times I get that.
Yeah.
Now, so what I do is oftentimes I record some keyboard pads on top, and I make up a chord progression on top. So if I have something like that, I might do something like. And then I have some movement.
Right.
So instead of just
static,
shredding in that one key center, I can move around.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you do that, because I encountered something just like that. My singer in Day of Reckoning owns his own recording studio and does a lot of recording, and he's also a guitar player as well as a singer. And he was helping me. He was recording me doing some guest solos for a couple of artists, and I encountered that where it was like, it just seemed like it was very static and the chord changes weren't going anywhere, and I couldn't find anything that I liked. And he was like, well, try putting a melody over it and then follow the melody to create the solo against. It's kind of like the same thing that you're talking about, where you use keyboards to create a patch, some chord changing, some movement in there. And I'd never really thought about that before. I just kept banging my head against the wall trying to figure out something to do that was interesting. That's
I mean, when I send the solo back, I include a track with the synth, but it's like up to the band or the guys, if they want to use it.
Right.
Because even if you remove it, you're still gonna have, that it starts, on the. I mean, you could hear that there was some
movement,
harmonic movement. So even if you remove the chords, it's still there.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. It's kind of like
something. Speaking of that Neuromancer solo, since in my band I get to write all the, solo parts and like the chord progressions, and then I try to set things up so that I get some interesting spots where I can do some things that would twist my ear.
Right.
And that solo, it modulates through 4 keys. And the second to last modulation, it goes from A flat minor to G minor. But the chord progression is
nice.
So it's a 1 flat 6 4 5 chord progression. And then
Right.
it's the same chord progression, but in G. So obviously for the first 3 chords, I play diatonically in A flat. And when I reach the 5 chord, the way I thought about this, since I've played the other chords before, you hear this as being the 5 chord, and you want to go back to the 1, right?
Right.
But instead of playing the appropriate notes to go back to the 1, I stopped playing Lydian. Like instead of Phrygian dominant, I stopped playing Lydian. And then it's like, that doesn't sound right. But those notes are the same notes as G minor. So that like makes it lead into the next chord. So
Right.
I use the notes in my solo to modulate.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
And that's what like you said, where you're trying to write something that turns your own ear. It makes you kind of go like, oh, what was that? And that's what turned me onto that solo when I heard it. Because, again, it's not just staying diatonic the whole time, running through scales and then running up scales. You know what I mean? And I heard that and I was like, oh my gosh, how did he do that? And then I had to learn it and be like, okay, so right here, you hit that Lydian. And at the time I didn't know that it was Lydian, but like I played it and I was like, I would never hit that note, but it makes so much sense because it pushes you right back here to that G minor. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like you have to be aware of those things sometimes, and it's really
because
fun.
as a listener, when you hear that, you can feel like, whoa, like you start leaning, like what's happening?
Yeah. And then it comes home.
If I would go back to A flat minor, it would be like then you lose your balance. But since you start leaning and then you land on the right spot, and it's like
right, and it feels really jarring too, but in a good way. Like you're like, where is he going with this? Like you feel lost for a second, and then you bring it back home, and you're like, oh, that was really smart, actually.
Yeah,
and that's why I love that whole solo.
It's the whole thing with the having that the tension and the release.
I talk about that a lot, with writing solos and stuff too. Like essentially, what you're doing is you're just building up moments of tension and then resolving them however you can to whatever, because we're talking a lot about secondary dominance and stuff, building that tension in there too, non-diatonically, and to solo over that is so much more interesting, in my opinion.
So who were some of your major influences growing up?
Yngwie Malmsteen was an early one.
Yeah.
I mean, I started listening to like heavy metal music around the time when I started playing the guitar, 9 or 10 years old.
Right.
And my older brother had a lot of albums. He had all the like Iron Maiden, Dio, Accept, Black Sabbath, like all the stuff in the early to mid 80s.
What Malmsteen record was current when you started playing?
Maybe Marching Out.
Marching Out, so like a second record. Well, was as a solo artist.
Rising Force was the first one I heard.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the first time I heard Malmsteen. It was that unaccompanied solo on Steeler, the Steeler record before "Hot on Your Heels." That was the first thing I heard by Yngwie. And we had here in Houston. There was a show on Friday nights on the radio called Metal Shop, and they played it. I remember hearing it. It was just like, holy cow! Because before I heard Yngwie, nobody in rock guitar played like that at all. It was an incredible jump.
People didn't believe it.
Yeah.
I remember playing listening to the album Rising Force at home, and my dad had one of his friends there, and that guy played some guitar, and I said, you got to listen to this guy, and he was like, it's clearly sped up. And I was like, no, it's really really can't play like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy, man. And that's got to have been before YouTube and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, way before.
Yeah, for sure. Because, that was before I even knew that you could speed things up. You know what I mean? I didn't even know about that until people started saying that on YouTube and shit like that. But, so I didn't even think that. I was just blown away. I just, it's like, wow, this is just amazing.
Yngwie you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, I was totally blown away. Today, it's still, I mean, he's had a major influence on my playing, but
My dad used to be a bouncer at a local place here, and Yngve came through and played. And like my dad, being a guitar player, obviously was there, but as a bouncer wise, he's like I couldn't even pay attention to the bouncing people out of the bar because he was so enthralled by Yngve's playing and what was going on and how amazing he was. And then Yngve like flicked a pick out, and my dad caught it, and like he still has that pick even now. It's still sitting in his toolbox because he won't let me touch it.
No.
I know, right? I caught one when he came. It was actually at the exact same place that my dad used to bounce 20 years ago. He came back, and Yngve was like flicking picks out to people, and I was getting so pissed because like they kept coming to me, but like I'm kind of short, you know, so I couldn't really reach out and grab it. And then finally he kept seeing that I wanted one, so he came over and he kind of flicked one, and I caught it like that, and I was like, oh my god! And then I just like held it, and I didn't know what to do with my life.
The pick of destiny.
Yeah.
So did you?
The pick of destiny.
Was it a big thing for people to say that, oh, well, Malmsteen, he doesn't have any feeling when he plays? Did you hear a bunch of that stuff?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, I remember when Malmsteen...
I didn't really, you know, I never really cared about other people's opinions on music, you know, because I remember having early on, you know, and this goes for a lot of people, of course, but I felt so strongly for music and and the way, you know, musical performance, melody, harmony, all of it, how it affected me, you know, and so I couldn't care less what anyone else, you know, thought.
Yeah, of course. I remember personally hearing other guitar players saying that, oh, well, he just plays fast and he has no feeling, and I just would always remember thinking to myself, what are you talking about? You know, I mean, you know,
well, that's pretty subjective though, too. You know, I mean,
I've heard so many slow players play without feeling. You know,
exactly.
It's not exclusive for fast playing,
right?
And I want to say that, I mean, the idea that fast can't be beautiful is absurd to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
Because I've always thought it's like, you know, that's very subjective of you to say that. You know, because like you said, you feel music at a certain level, and if somebody's playing fast, like Yngve, or you know, you listen to somebody like Rusty, or even yourself, and it's like, just because it's fast doesn't mean that I don't have emotion for what it is that they played, right? And then it's like somebody's trying to tell you that you shouldn't feel a certain way based on because this guy's playing fast. It's like, well, what do I care what you think? You know, I mean, like, I like it all, and I like slow stuff. I mean, but it's like like you said, to be exclusive to just. Oh, if it's fast, there's no soul or there's no feel. It's like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't even let my students say that here. Like, there's no such thing as just feel or no feel. You're playing it and you like it or you don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's the whole feeling thing. It's like first, as soon as I hear somebody talk about that, it's just like I know what they mean. It's like, oh, because this guy's playing fast, he doesn't have a feeling. It's really ridiculous. That's a whole other subject. I could go on a soapbox talking about that bullshit. But
you're kind of susceptible to that too, being as fast as you are. You know, the number one thing people talk about for you is, well, he's playing so fast. Does he even like the guitar because, you know, he's playing so fast? He's like, and it's like, how can you say that this person doesn't have feeling for guitar when their whole life is based around it?
Yeah,
literally everything I've done with guitar, everything you've done, and pair, it's like. To say that you don't have feeling for it, it's like, dude, my whole life is based around this thing. But you know,
true, very true, man. So what else? Who else was a big influence? You know, Yngve and Holdsworth and.
Yeah, Yngve was the really big one, my first really big one, and then my next really big one, I guess, was Steve Vai.
Yeah, me too.
And. He's also a guy who's, you know, got a lot of, you know, shit for not playing with feeling or whatever. But I really like his playing. And back then I was crazy about Steve's playing, And not only his playing, but, you know, his entire, like, his compositions and his arrangements and all of it,
even his persona,
I mean,
just who he is, so weird, but in a good way, you know.
And I mean, he's such a like complete, package with everything he does.
Right. Sure.
And there's something about Yngwie where he's such a raw force on the guitar.
Right.
It's just, and he's like an amazing improviser. He's written a lot of great songs, but it's not, he's not the one I'm thinking about as a really great composer, even though I love a lot of his music.
Right.
And I mean, he for me, I think Yngwie is, I perceive him as being very much a feeling player. It's like his hands are, it's bleeding emotion a lot of the time when he plays. And Steve Vai has that too, but he feels more, his solos feels more like they are composed.
Right.
He doesn't have, he feels more like an intellectual player.
Right. I could agree with that for sure.
In a way. And I really dig that. I love that.
I've watched some videos of him where he, like, his form of relaxation is like he's sitting there writing out, like handwriting all of the notes on staff paper, like that. He just sits there and writes out his solos and writes out ideas, and he's like, oh, I'm just relaxing. Like that's his form of just reading a book or something. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. I can't do that.
Right.
But you're probably right when you say that he's like super intellectual. It's like it's like he overthinks every single note in a good way, because he'll talk about his vibrato, right, where he's got like 3 different vibratos. He's got like the straight up and down, where you're just doing wide old school vibrato, and then he's got like that one where he stays inside the fret and wiggles it back and forth a little bit. That's
classical vibrato.
Yeah, and it's like, and he's like, on this one I chose to have that note because of this, and then this one I chose to have this vibrato, and I'm just like, that's what got me into start like analyzing my playing, I guess. I used to just, balls to the wall, just play and hit the right notes at the right time. But then I'm like, oh, I guess he's right. Like if I sit here for just an extra second and vibrato this note a little differently, it does give me a different, something different that I wasn't expecting.
And then there's like, I guess Allan Holdsworth would then be my third big influence, and the one that has stayed with me as the main one ever since. Right. And he also gets a lot of crap for not playing with feeling or whatever, because a lot of the stuff he plays, it's so like cerebral.
But I feel like a lot of people say that you're not playing with feeling because you've stepped away from the pentatonic box. You're not doing the blues licks like everybody, the flat fives. And if you're not doing that, then you don't have feel. And it's like, well, Lydian has quite the emotional state in my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I agree for sure. That's a part of it. That people expected to be bluesy.
Yeah, like Gary Moore.
To have a certain kind of vibrato and have a certain amount of bends. And
right.
then you have someone
key thing right there, bends. If you're not bending a bunch of notes, then you don't have feeling. That's what I meant.
And then
earlier
you have
when I
someone
said,
like Allan who doesn't have a lot of blues in his playing. I mean, this is just not a blues guy.
Right.
And
I like the way he bends in vibratos, though. It's his own unique way. He does a lot of the stuff with the whammy bar and whatnot. That's just completely innovating to me.
And when I hear him play, I mean, his best work for me, it sounds like his guitar is crying. I mean, for me, it's like super emotional to listen to. There's a lot of his music that I almost I need to be alone when I listen to it, because it's like it tears me up.
Right.
Because I find it so beautiful, and other people think it sounds like garbage, but.
Yeah, I hear you. It's hard for some people to understand. I used to teach this guy that every week he would come in and as part of the lesson, he would ask me, do you think this guy knows the modes? And he'd ask me certain guys, and he came in, he goes, this Allan Holdsworth guy, he doesn't ever play in key, does he? It's like, man, some people just don't get it. You know what I mean? I think it takes a certain, you have to, I mean, I don't know. It's not like you have to be a musician to appreciate it, because that certainly is not the truth. But at a certain level, you have to have you can't go listen to Holdsworth cold. You know what I mean? If you've never experienced anything like that, you know what I mean?
I think
it's like if you listen to, it's like if you listen to rock music all your life and then you listen to John Coltrane for the first time.
Yeah.
It's going to take you a minute to start to digest that,
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, you can't have that expectation when you go listen to Holdsworth. You can't expect it to sound like, Angus Young, because it will not at any shape or form. And then you put that pressure on it and it's like, oh, this guy doesn't play inside the mode. It's like, well, yeah, he kind of does, but also he doesn't, and he knows why.
Right. He doesn't play within your knowledge frame.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's like it's a palette, that's all it is. Once you've expanded your palette a little bit more, you can do that with anything, with food, with music. And that's why, it's about the creative side of it. We all have the same notes, right? There's only 12 that exist to our ears anyway. Maybe if we were in another dimension, we could hear a couple extra notes, but in this dimension, we've got 12. And I always say this to my students too, where I'm like, it's like, those are your basic ingredients. I mean, when chefs cook, they've got chicken, they've got beef, they've got pork, but there's so many different dishes out there because it's the spices and it's the way you prepare it and all these other things. So if you can put your solos and music theory in that realm, I think you get a little bit more successful, where you start thinking of it as more, what can I do to spice it up, right? The same notes over and over again.
Do you guys have any spicy licks?
Yeah. I don't know, Zach, what you got today, man? What you cooking over there?
Oh, geez. Let's see. Hang on a second.
Chicken cacciatore? I don't know. What kind of stuff are you working on these days?
But please make it vegan.
Make it vegan. So like something like a couple of licks that I like. Let me switch microphones here. So hang on.
Yeah.
I like to do a lot of stuff with the chromatics, where I'll take the normal scale, something like that, but then I'll throw in these other notes that for no reason other than just because I like to.
Did you do something like? Did you do like a chromatic ornament?
Yeah. So what I did was I went from so it'd be 6. Let me see, where am I? 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, and then back up to 6. And that was one lick that Paul Gilbert was really impressed by, which is cool because he played it.
Is that one of the things from the Ibanez contest that you won?
Yep, it's one of my favorites to show because it was the first thing I actually came up with on the spot. One of those random moments that you actually come up with something really cool, and I just worked on it and hashed it out. But and then some other stuff I like, the big stretchy stuff too. The one solo that I'm working on.
Very nice, dude. What is that, pentatonic?
So you could look at it as pentatonic because a lot of the notes fall there, but I was looking at it more like minor 7 arpeggio spread across all 7 strings, and you're skipping from 7 to 5 to 3 to 1. And then I do the economy picking for that, so I don't have to jump and then pull back. So I economy pick straight up, so all that's picked.
That's very nice. I would have probably just did all legato on that.
Well,
Yeah, so save yourself some trouble.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it was specifically meant for me to try to get that picking across the strings,
Right. Yeah. What's that lick that you played the other day that you showed me? That's a 3/4 combo.
Oh yeah. So that one.
That looks like a lot of work.
It is.
Very nice, though.
It's like what Bill Hudson had said to me one time when I played
Right.
one of my songs. He was like, "That looks exhausting. I don't want to do that." And I was like, "Okay."
That's why I said it. I was referencing that. That's
Yeah,
pretty
right.
cool.
Oh yeah, I did tell you about that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, here's my thing. Like, and like with you, Per, I don't know how like big or small you are, or if your hands are bigger than most people or they're smaller. I don't really know. I've never like you don't look like you're 6'8" or anything, you know?
No, I'm pretty medium sized for Swede,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. For
or at
Swede.
least that's what my wife says.
Oh,
Right.
well, that's nice. of her.
Yeah, I mean, we've met a couple of times in person. What are you, like 6 foot? 5'9"? Oh, you don't think about it that way. You're in.
No, I'm a metric. I'm all metric,
Right.
baby.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't have that translation. I'm like 5'8" on a good day. You know what I mean? Depending on what year I look at my driver's license. So I'm definitely not a super tall dude. But you know, and I don't consider myself to have large hands or small
Right.
hands or whatever. They just seem like they're, I don't know, they're whatever. But
Well, see, but that's what I was
think-
getting at when I was asking about his size was that I've always been told by people like, oh, well, you know, I have small hands, so I don't think I can play guitar. So I like made it a mission of mine to just make sure that I'm getting those stretches in. And even if I have to move my thumb all the way to the end of the board, I'm going to get that stretch. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
never let it hinder me
Right.
whatsoever. So when I'm
Yeah.
doing a 4-note span from 5 to 10, like, okay, my thumb's all the way back here. And I wonder if the neck that
Right.
you have on that Steinberger would actually work out really
Strandberg.
well to Strandberg, sorry, Steinberg.
yeah.
I was working on a Steinberg the other day.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I'm all about the big stretches, you know, and or like, you know, when you do these big diminished ones, like that Paul Gilbert really likes to do, the string skip ones.
Mhm.
I would sit there for hours and just make sure my hands would stretch, and then I'd have to like sit and, you know, whine about it for a minute. But
Yeah, I kind of I started doing 4-note per string stuff a long time ago, and I thought I was onto something new, and then I realized that, well, Allan Holdsworth already does this, and he's going to do it better than I'll ever be able to do it. So it didn't discourage me from continuing to work on it, but you know, it's like I think at some point somebody out there has already probably done something that you're trying to do or whatever. I mean, it's kind of hard to really do anything that somebody else hasn't attempted or whatever. You know what I mean?
you can always make it better.
You can try. It's kind of a cool little Mixolydian thing. You get this 4-note pattern. It's like this 4-finger pattern, but it's kind of interesting. So there's a little spicy lick, I suppose, for you. So it's you start on your ring finger, you go to ring index, and you go to middle pinky. Take that across.
That's tricky. I don't have that kind of independence.
And then you can tap on top and go.
Oh, did we lose your camera?
You like. Sorry, my gate.
I'm glad I went first.
What's that?
I said I'm glad I went first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of an older lick. That's out of the song off my instrumental album called The Butcher with the tapping on top. So you do that pattern with the left hand and add T2 and T3 with your right. Yeah, kind of
Slow that left hand down one more time. Just the
Sure.
left. Two things. Derek said, Jesus Christ, Rusty, first and foremost. And then second, he said, Per, he could listen to you talk all day.
Well,
Nice.
thanks, Derek. That's our tech guy.
That's my brother. He's teching. He's making sure we don't look like
Right.
Show us that pentatonic thing that you do in Under the Influence. the like 5 pattern pentatonic.
Yeah.
This one's freaky.
So again, that's the one of them. So it's you got the 1, 3, 5, flat 7, and the flat 3. It's just. And I go to the next grouping, and I do this one a little bit differently because I'll go to the 5, flat 7, and then the flat 3, and the 11, and then the 7 again. And that's the flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1, and the flat 3rd again. And then the top one's just the flat 7, 1. Or no, flat 7, 3, the A is the 11, and the B is the 5 and the octave. So. Yeah, it's kind of slop fest, but do one starting on your low B as well. Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of interesting, at least.
So now it's Pear's turn.
All right.
Am I saying that right, by the way?
It's pad.
Okay.
I say.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm from Nebraska. Like if it doesn't rhyme with cow or corn, I'm lost. Say it one more time.
Please don't try to make my name rhyme with corn.
I will not.
Right.
That's I won't. I'll try.
Is your name porn?
Corn. Which rhymes with corn.
I'm not sure I have anything worthwhile to show you. Like when I pick up the guitar, I never really, sit down and practice or work on it, anything like that. I mostly, just improvise. And when I do that, I play, single note lines, but I usually try to sort of flesh out some harmony in my lines, and I usually play, pretty slowly. Maybe I start somewhere.
That's awesome, dude. But you play fast a lot. And you've got to be, in my opinion, you're one of the most fluid legato players I've ever heard. You know what I mean? So when you are playing with velocity, you obviously have had to have worked out some of those ideas to a certain
extent. That's a fancy word, Rusty.
Which one?
Velocity.
Yeah, there you go.
That's one way of getting past all of that speed talk.
There you go.
It's
we're talking about velocity, not speed.
He has that. He has that dictionary word of the day: toilet paper.
There you go.
So he kind of used that word.
My 50-cent word. Yeah. Anyway, so.
But I noticed you don't use a pick either. So is that all the time, or is it just every now and again?
I often, I tuck it in and I hold it with my.
I see.
So I play with it. And I tuck it right.
So you kind of go from picking to just finger picking, not a form of hybrid picking.
Yeah.
Because I'll do some hybrid picking where I still use my pick, but I use my other fingers, to do.
I do that a little bit sometimes. And not really for speed,
Right.
Right.
Get that plot.
Just to get that, that little snap.
That's very cool stuff, man. Was that something you consciously worked on, or is it just kind of happened?
Something that just happened.
Right.
I just needed that tone, that sound, and that's just what made it.
Yeah.
One of the licks that I have I try to incorporate my pick a little bit more. And guys like Bumblefoot was talking about it quite a bit when I did a solo for one of his like new tunes. And it kind of goes like this. I kind of took it from Michael Romeo a little bit. So what I basically do is I'll do like a chromatic run, and then I'll tap the chromatic run, and then I'll use my pick to get more chromatic notes moving up, right?
That's cool. Sounds like some weird computer game.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But and see, that's when, like, you talked about like where people say, oh, did you slow it down and this and that? Because it sounds computery, but when you see what's actually going on, it's just it just works. But I don't slow it down. It just sounds cool and computery.
Right.
But that's one of my favorite things. And I'll sometimes slide up, and then I'll follow it with my finger, and then I'll bend that note. So it's, really just weird.
Nice.
So that's it. That's all I've got. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Yeah. There's one little thing that I guess I've started doing it lately. It's something that just happened. A little hybrid thing. I'll do it like this.
Whoa! You like a string skip?
Yeah, it's a string skip. So it's like. So those are the notes.
That's awesome. I might have to steal that now.
And it sounds like kind of aggressive.
So like visually, it doesn't make sense because in my head, if I heard that, I'd think it's like a tap because it's such a high interval away. But then if I watched you play that live, I'd be like, what the hell is this guy doing? Because that's freaking awesome. Well, now I stole that. So
I was asking you about, some of the super legato stuff that you play. Because there's some great lines on the Scar Symmetry records and it's just so fluid. How did you, obviously, I realize practice is the obvious answer. How did you develop that? But, what's some of the thought process behind some of that stuff? Just, because I realize you think a lot about, it's not just about playing fast scale runs for you, obviously, it's there's more to it than that, the melody and whatnot, and the harmony and how it's affecting each chord and stuff like that. So, and then you're playing it at that speed, that's pretty awesome stuff. How do you approach that? I know it's kind of a vague question, but
yeah, for one, I guess one of the reasons I play a lot of legato stuff is because it's always been difficult for me to alternate pick. Mm-hmm. That was always something that it didn't came natural for me, but the legato thing did. And when I was like in my teens, when I practiced a lot, I did practice legato stuff, but ever since it's more something that's developing just by playing and improvising and.
Right. Just trying things out. So you don't have
and every once in a while I just stumble onto something new that I can do, like that little extra pluck.
Right.
Isn't it like super exciting when, because you've been playing guitar a long time. How many years? When did you start?
Yeah, I started 36 years ago.
So yeah, okay.
Wow, that's about like me. I started playing in '83.
I'm not even 36 yet.
Yep. So imagine how good you'll be one day.
I know, right? If I quit sucking at guitar. But it's cool, like when you've been playing for so long, and then you find something new like that, and you're like, I feel like it's like a little win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just great. I love it.
Yeah. And, realistically, when you've been playing as long as I have, you keep searching for that, because otherwise it would get boring. You know what I mean? You've got to just keep striving for things. I think as a guitar player, for me personally, the most important thing is just to try to stay in a constant state of learning, to continue learning. Because if you don't, then, I know from my own perspective, if I don't keep trying to learn stuff and push things, I get bored, and I feel like I just start repeating myself over and over again. You know what I mean?
So that's a good question to ask though, too, is, do you ever feel like, and this is for both of you guys, like, do you ever feel like self-conscious about your playing due to like the ever-changing guitar world nowadays? Like, where like, different recording sessions come out and people like have mastered Pro Tools, and then they do all these different things and different sounds, and it sounds like their guitar playing is just getting better and better. Is there ever like, I guess, any kind of self-doubt there, or pushing yourself more?
Well, not for me.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's a lot of things going on, and a lot of new players, that do really impressive things. But I mean, it doesn't. In many ways, it doesn't relate to me or my music.
Right.
And it's also, playing in my music. It's such a personal thing. It's almost like, if I hear another guitar player, I mean, I can't strive to be him. It would be, if I strive to, talk in Rusty's voice and have his haircut.
Right.
It wouldn't make any sense. I regardless of what's around me, I can only work with, what I've got.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I try to, as much as I can, I try to continue to listen. I'm always searching for new sources of inspiration and listen, but I'm never trying to be something that I'm not. I mean, because at the end of the day, I can only be me, and no matter what I play, it's gonna end up sounding like me.
Right. Because that's a good piece of advice. I think most guitar players should start focusing on is, dude, you don't have to be the next Yngwie. He's already done it. Like, you need to be the next you. And if Yngwie happens to be an inspiration, then okay. But
right. And that's the way, I mean, I've never spent time learning other guitar players' music. I never played in cover bands. And I mean, to this day, I probably have only learned one or two songs by other people all the way through. Just because I just spent, all my time trying to do my own thing. But, I did, I was on a tribute to Sean Lane. There was a Lion Music put out an album, it's a tribute to Sean, and I did a cover of his song Epilogue for Lisa.
Love it.
And to me, to try to, a lot of people, when they cover other musicians' music, they try to take liberties with it and try to do it better or one up them or something like that. And it's like, there's no way that I can do what Sean did better than Sean could do it. So I just did my best to represent what he did, and that was my approach to it. Cause I mean, you know
what, now that you mentioned that, that's actually how I found out about you.
Really?
Because Epilogue for Lisa is like my dad's favorite song. Really? From Sean Lane, and he wants that played at like his funeral, and he's talked about it for years. And we were listening to him do that old video of him playing it live, and just the vibrato work and all this stuff. And then on the side, YouTube suggests stuff, and it said Rusty Cooley Epilogue for Lisa, and we listened to it. My dad was like, "Who the hell is this guy? This is crazy good." Like, because at first you're like, "Who can play like Sean Lane, and why would they attempt to?" But then like. So now that I have totally forgot about that until you mentioned that you did that. I think that's how I pretty much found out about you.
Yeah, something even more unique that you probably don't know is because I really have never talked about it very much. But when I recorded that the version of his song, I have his book, the Warner Brothers book and it has the transcription to that's Epilogue for Lisa in it. And I actually had his recording playing at the same time I was recording it as I was reading it. And that's how I recorded it. I was reading it and playing it with his version playing, and I was playing along with him playing at the same time, and just tried to get every nuance and every note exactly like he played it, which it's pretty interesting to try to do that. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to record and,
not with Sean Lane.
Yeah. Well, I certainly wouldn't be one of his faster tunes, but that's for sure. But that was where my head was. I wanted to try to make it as as much like him as I could, and certainly wouldn't dream of taking liberties on anybody like that's music. Really, you can't do that. That's awesome. So I take it you're into some Sean Lane as well.
Yeah, I love that album.
Yeah. Do you know there's two versions of Powers of 10?
There's one with programmed drums.
Is that what it is? I didn't. I know that one of them has Sean Rickman on it, but the albums have different versions. Like there's the song, what is it? West Side Boogie? Is that the name of it? What's the name of that song?
I think so. Yeah.
There's on each one of those versions on Powers of 10s on that song, he's got different guitar solos.
Oh. And
there's another song on that album. I don't know if it's Gray Pianos Flying or Rules of the Game, but there's different solos on that as well. So two of the songs, and the song orders are different on those albums as well. Mm-hmm. And there's different solos on two of the songs. I know West Side Boogie is one of them, which is a great tune. So it's interesting. If you haven't heard it, you should try to find it.
Yeah.
And if all else fails, I have it. But I can help you out with that. What else was I going to say? Have you heard his version of what's the Hendrix cover that he does on Tritone Fascination? Let me see if I can find it. No. That's a very famous one that he's known for. There's a Hendrix song that's not as popular. Hendrix played it, I think, only at Woodstock. And it's when he had the other guitar playing, it was a band of gypsies, I think, or something like that. Let me see, Sean Lane. Where's my Lane stuff here? Sean Lane. Here we go. It is Peace in Mississippi.
Haven't heard it.
If you haven't heard it, look it up, man. It's a great song. I didn't know it was a cover at first. I thought it was something that he wrote. He does such it sounds very authentic. You know what I mean? It's a great tune. Killer solo on it. Have you heard the stuff that he did with Jens Johansson?
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff's really cool too, man. I mean, I don't know, dude. Everything Sean does is just really cool.
The album with the Johanssons that Sean plays on,
mm-hmm.
or maybe if it's more than one album, but
it's just one I think album, that I know of.
Yeah, and that one there's a tune called "Don't Mention the War."
Right.
And there's a big section on it that doesn't have a lead.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like it should be a solo here, and it wasn't. And then I really dug that. So I recorded myself just improvising over it, and I posted it on Facebook, and Jens and Anders, they started commenting, and
wow.
And Anders he wrote that Allan Holdsworth, he was supposed to play on the album,
really,
and do a solo. But when he heard that Sean Lane was playing, he said, no thanks, I don't want to play on an album with Sean Lane, because he was intimidated, I guess.
Really?
And I'm like, for me, Allan Holdsworth is the god.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have to
yeah,
bow to anyone.
No, that's crazy. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a video of Sean Lane meeting Allan Holdsworth for the first time at NAMM.
Yeah, I've seen it a long time ago.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because you can tell he's so starstruck, man. I had the privilege of meeting Allan at NAMM. I don't know. I think it was 2019, 2018. It was the same year that he passed. And I just feel so honored to have got to meet him. And it's funny because the guy that was there, he was signing at some booth, and I gave the guy my camera that was working at the booth, and he was taking pictures, and there's pictures of me, and I'm just looking at him signing, something for me, and it looked like a freaking kid in a candy store. It's pretty humorous looking back at it now, but I'm the same way, man. He's one of the best ever, as far as I'm concerned.
It's funny that you guys talk about that because, because for me, you guys, and a couple other in the age group or whatever, were the guys that inspired me, right? So for you to talk about like, oh, I got to see Allan Holdsworth and I was just mesmerized, or I got to see this guy. And it's funny because like I'm that way when it comes to you guys, you know what I mean? So I think that's kind of interesting. Do you ever like think about that ever, or do you just go on with your day? Like that you have people that like you are their, you know, whatever their main inspiration and stuff.
I don't. It's funny when it gets brought up. It is almost awkward for me sometimes, you know, because I've been out and after I've gotten done playing and people come up to me and go, "Oh man, I've been listening to you, you know, since I was a kid, and you know, you helped me through like your music helped me through dark times, or you know, how much of an influence I was." It's really kind of weird. You know what I mean? Because I don't ever think about that at all. It's never something that I sit around and think about. You know, I don't know.
You don't sit around at home just feeling awesome about yourself.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe you should.
Or thinking about, you know, how it's, you know, it's like, and that can go both ways, because obviously, you know, there's people out there that do appreciate what you do, and there's people out there that don't appreciate what you do. At least me. I've got a bunch of haters. I guess haters. It must be. Yeah. So, you know, I try not to absorb or consume any of my time with either, because in the end of the day, when I hear myself play and I know what I sound like, you know. So for me, I just try to, if somebody compliments me and whatnot, I appreciate it and thank you. But on the same token, I'm not going to get bent out of shape if somebody talks shit and says, you know, well, you suck and all you do is play fast and meaningless notes. And, you know, I just have to continue to do what I do regardless, you know. It's all like you can do, really. And if you let yourself get consumed with it, I think that's a downward spiral, you know, because you're never going to be able to please all the people all the time. And if that's your goal, then I think you should maybe try to do something different, you know. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, it's nowadays, like since I'm active on social medias, I've got Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all of that.
Right.
It's hard to not get affected by it, because, you know, I get love mails from strangers, all men.
You know? right.
And you know, and I get a few, I guess every day, you know, people writing to me like, "Oh, I love you," and I mean, it's obviously it's affecting me, you know, in some way. And I usually try to, you know, reply to everyone and be like,
"Sure,
thanks a lot, you know, you made my day." And
right.
And you know, but I feel like I'm too old to be, you know, consumed by it,
right?
Or you know, think that it's the, you know, objective truth, anything.
Right. I think. And yeah, I'm sorry. Go
sometimes
ahead.
if I played a show, sometimes I feel like I get off stage and I feel like I did a, you know, I mean, I rarely do a terrible job, but I you know, every once in a while, yeah, sometimes I'm like, this could have gone a lot better. You know, I'm not happy with my improvisations, and then people come up to me and they, you know, probably they are sincere and they say that, you know, this was the best show of my life or whatever, and it's, you know, and I would think that most of them are really sincere, and, you know, some are polite because they get to meet me, but most are probably sincere. And, you know, and I don't want to go like, I hated what I did tonight, you know, because the guy's experience is real and it's important to him, you know. And I you know, my, you know, opinion of what I just did doesn't really change because someone else, you know, had a different experience. I find it interesting that you can have so different experiences.
For sure.
But I mean,
right.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I try to do when I'm talking to younger guitar players. If there's advice that I can give you, is two pieces of advice: is learn how to make a mistake and recover from it. If you're on stage and you make a mistake and you get all bent out of shape about it, everybody's going to see that reaction and they're going to know what's up. If you make a mistake and you shrug it off or don't even act like something happened and you move on, chances are not very many people knew where that mistake came from. They might have heard something and went, what? And then they didn't even really realize what it was. You know, so it's how you recover from a mistake, and it's learn to take a compliment. because I was that guy when I was really young. If I had a bad night or made a mistake when I got off stage, I was just like all in a crappy mood. And if somebody tried to compliment me, I was like, oh man, that sucked and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's not the way to be at all, because like you said, if somebody comes up and compliments you, you genuinely affected them in a positive way, and they wouldn't come up and tell you that if they didn't think it. So for me personally to have acted like that was just out of order, and it was I was really young, that's all I can say. Grown up a little bit since then, hopefully, but learn how to take a compliment, because if you affected someone enough that they came up to compliment you, then you should take that and just say thank you. So, dude, this has been a pleasure. I don't want to keep you all night. I could sit here and chat with you all night long. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or plug that you got coming up? I know you got the new guitar coming out. Is it out yet, or when can people get it?
It was released yesterday.
All right, February fantastic. 5th. Where can people purchase this guitar?
From the Strandberg webpage.
Okay, so exclusively from there?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Okay.
This guitar is produced in pretty small batches.
Okay.
From what I heard, it's doing the true temperament fretting.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a lot of labor.
Right.
We'll put the link to that too in the description so people can check it out, because there's there's this
awesome.
really great page on it and kind of goes into all that stuff. It looks cool.
For sure, man.
Yeah. It's awesome, man. I want that.
Yeah. So basically, that's all I got for now.
Okay, but that's good enough, man. That's awesome.
Well, hey, let's do it again.
Absolutely.
When you start running out of guests, you go back and redo everyone.
Absolutely, dude. It would be a pleasure, man. Always been a big fan of your playing, dude. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hang out with us.
Yeah, nice meeting you, Zach.
Yeah, you too. I appreciate it, man. Like I said, you and Rusty are in my top 5, so this is a really great, weird, awesome moment for me. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
So, and if you ever need anything from us, or if you want to plug something again, or if you have something coming up, just let us know, man. We'll put you on anytime, anywhere.
Yeah,
my brother also says,
awesome.
My brother says hi, and that he wishes you the most success in your life. So,
thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Right on, man.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. We're gonna continue so we can kind of get some of the stuff wrapped up on our end. And
sure.
Then,
yep.
We'll let you know.
I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah.
Alrighty,
we'll
sir.
let you know when this goes live, man.
That way you can promote it on your
Awesome.
socials and stuff as well. All right.